Hi, my name is Noshad, some of you guys know me as Sharon, and this is Spurs podcast. I am delighted to have on the line a man deadlier than Ronda Rousey's armbar, a man who can get women into the bedroom quicker than a fight between Lyoto Machida and Dan Henderson, a man whose smooth ride and even smoother tones will be gracing this this YouShubes video podcast. I'm talking about, and on that bombshell, here's Dom.
Hello there, Shoes. Again, you're outdoing yourselves with these intros. Hello there. How's you?
Oh man, well, do you know what? It's been a really good, in terms of sports-wise. It's been for me. I mean, I love mixed martial arts and I love football and I love Andre's best mate. So obviously he's gonna love this combination of mixed martial arts in this video podcast, and it's just been really good just having that and then watching that. Did you watch the League Cup final, per chance?
I didn't actually watch it. I was kind of following it. A friend of mine is a Bradford fan, but didn't watch it from start to finish. I probably watched the last half hour or so.
The reason I ask is that it was really weird because it was, I don't know, obviously they can't predict how the fixtures will turn out, but it was like the game beforehand was Chelsea-Man City, and then the next game was like the opposite. I mean, like here you have two basically moneyed clubs who basically gas rubles and petrodollars that have gone into both clubs basically and inflated them and gotten to this incredible level that they're at. And here you have, say, Bradford and Swansea City basically playing for a competition that many don't even give the hoots about. But it was just a real antithesis of when you compare the two clubs, the passion that Bradford and Swansea City showed, and even towards the end, I was really touched by it. I mean, especially at the end, they did that little guard of honour. I don't know if you got to see that or not.
I didn't see it, but it's one of those things. The League Cup has been devalued for years. If it wasn't for the fact that I had a friend that's Bradford fan, I probably would have had little interest in it. It's a shame to say, but when you look at the teams that were in it, it's not your glamour teams of the cup competition. But fair play to them, and to them to win it and to keep to take it seriously is obviously a big priority. So fair play. Definitely.
Speaking of cup finals that most people don't take seriously, West Ham lost their cup final to us on Monday.
It does amuse me how football seems to kind of go round in circles and kind of one team on the up and the others down. I remember when Arsenal fans used to say, "Oh, it's our cup final whenever we play Spurs, but we don't take them seriously in the league." We as Spurs fans all look at West Ham in the same way. We don't see them as competitors. Whereas, if you ever have a look at any of the West Ham boards, the other way around, it's a very different story.
And for me, I can't understand for the life of it why that it is that case. I mean, the thing is, I must admit, I was going into that game thinking, the usual tough games we do in inverted commas for everything. But
it's a tough game.
Do you know what? The thing is, West Ham have only ever lost once at home, and that was to Arsenal. They've drawn. I think they drew with United in the FA Cup, and for me, I mean, a player who I think is an excellent, who I think is a very good player, but doesn't really do it consistently enough. I mean, Joe Cole had a fabulous game. I mean, this was an inspired West Ham. The whole Bobby Moore thing and Joe Cole was on fire. I just thought, if they were ever going to beat us, it would have been that night. That's just, everything was set up for them to really, I mean, they obviously hate us and they were really pumped to play us, but the Joe Cole thing, I mean, the Bobby Moore thing, obviously the emotion surrounding that. I mean, Joe Cole was, I mean, some of the football he was playing, the passes and the goal he took, I mean, real quality there. And I think we did really well to beat them because they were really pumped up for this. They had all the rest. They went to Dubai for that warm weather training, so they really put everything into this.
It's one of those things where I've raised this recently on the aforementioned Spurs forum. It always seems to be the way that teams seem to step up their game against us. Now, some people, I think, Snappers was questioning whether or not you think that's because you're biased, whether I'm biased towards Spurs, and yes, perhaps that is a factor, but for all of the reasons that you said, the 20th anniversary of Sir Bobby Moore's death, they've got Joe Cole back fired up, and he's actually playing a blinder. Jaskalainen in goal. I mean, for him to get man of the match was probably well deserved. And it was ridiculous. You won't see him play another game like that all season, but it happened to be against us. And in previous seasons, we would have come away with a draw from that at best, or indeed a loss. And I think it's a pretty decent side. Yes, of course, we have the Wonder Man Bale to see us through yet again. But I think it's a great sign of us as a team that even despite all those factors, despite the crowd being pumped up for this one, we actually came through and got the win.
The interesting thing is, and I'm going to somehow bring this back to MMA, but I think Bale's goals are like Ronda Rousey's armbars. You just know they're going to happen. You just know somewhere in whatever fight she's in, she's going to pull off that armbar. You know.
Well, they always say about her. You're so right. They always say about her. You know, all of her opponents know exactly what she's trying to do. She's going to try and take that arm and upfire you. If she can do it in the first round to keep up that record, she will. And everyone talks about it. All of her opponents have talked about it beforehand, but they can't prevent it. The shoes, I would say that's a brilliant analogy, because everyone knows what Bane's going to, you know, Allardyce or Fat affectionately or not.
Big Sam. Shall we call him Big Sam? I don't want to get sued, dude. I don't get sued.
We need to be practiced here. I agree. Look, rather large fan.
Yeah.
I'd even mentioned that you know, Bale it's a one-man team before the game, and you know they're going to set up you know, some players to mark him and X, Y, and Z. So they know exactly what's going to happen, and they can't stop him. So yeah, exactly the same as Ronda Rousey's armbar. You know what you get with Bale. Can you stop him? It's a different matter entirely.
And I think the other thing is, I mean, I don't. I'm assuming you watched the fight between Ronda Rousey and Liz Carmouche.
I didn't watch it live. I watched the next day.
Okay.
Yes,
did you see Liz Carmouche's brother showing her the way by going for that rear naked choke?
you see what I mean? And she even said in the post-fight press conference, you know, having seen Uriah Faber do a rear naked choke whilst on his back, climbed up like a little monkey. You know, it'd kind of be funny if her, as the female twin of him, did exactly the same thing. And it was close. It was very close, I think.
Yeah.
Fair play to Rousey's not.
And I think one of the things that is some of the things that I think is the adversity that, I mean, Ronda Rousey had to basically, I know this is a Spurs podcast, but it's when you experience adversity and you have the ability to withstand that adversity and just come out through the other side. And then Ronda Rousey, I'm not saying the next opponent will be tough. I don't know who she's fighting, but it will be the fact that she experienced adversity and was able to come through the other side. She had that resilience. And I think that's something we've noticed about Spurs. I don't know about what it is, but we know that we used to have everyone say, "Oh, Spurs, they've got that soft centre." But I think there's something similar to Man United, but we've got a resilience that I don't remember us ever having. I don't remember us having this kind of ability to say, "Do you know what? We're going to stick this one out. We're going to get the draw if we're losing, or we're going to get the win." Do you know what I mean? There's something about us that we are able to. We don't fear adversity anymore. I think it's Man United-esque, their resilience. I mean, what would you think, Dom?
I couldn't agree more, and I'd say it's one of the big kind of pluses of AVB's sort of new look team, new look formation, and new look outlook. I couldn't agree more with you. I think again, someone on Spurs forum said they can't remember Spurs ever have scoring so many late goals, come from behind, or to actually be drawing and then to snatch the winner, because it's never been the way. In the past, when we go goal down, it crumbles. Spurs have kind of let their heads drop, and maybe we'll have a half-hearted attempt. As a Spurs fan, never really had any conviction. Often that we'd get back into games where we were falling behind and what have you, and it's completely different now. I agree.
I think I remember seeing that against. I remember when we used to. I think when Rafa van der Vaart first joined us. I do remember us going behind and he was able to pull things back, and I do remember those. But yeah, I just thought it was just because of the quality that Rafa van der Vaart brought. But I think there's something, I don't know, there's a real unity. I mean, the way that he ran when he scored the winner, the way he poignantly ran to AVB,
great.
It was amazing. I mean, that sense of unity and that team togetherness. Yeah. So by the way, where did we pick up AVB from? Was it at Chelsea? Oh, the beacon of team unity and togetherness.
Chelsea, don't even get me started on Chelsea. They're a disgrace of a football club. The way they treat their managers, what else can they expect? But a bit of unrest and disunity. But the whole fact that I think Rafa Benitez's rant, as a lot of people have called it, was actually relatively dignified. In the face of adversity, he came out and he said, absolutely, if you give him interim job title, you're undermining him from the off. So,
the thing is, he must have known that. He must have known that before he even joined. The fact that he said, look, we're going to make you the interim manager, you're hiding to nothing anyway. Yeah, it's not just...
We've got a fat neck from Roman Abramovich on the upper end of it. You're probably not going to pick up as much of a fuss. You'll accept the job, but maybe not make too much of a fuss about the job title then. Yeah, I agree.
It just seems odd. It just seems odd. Why make a fuss about it then? I mean, the thing is, I think it's very brave to basically have a go at the fans. I mean, he's right. I mean, the fans have been disgraceful. I think he's very, very right. But I think to say, and I said, he said, look, if you're constantly going on at me and having a go at me, you're not getting behind your team, and they need you. The team needs you to be there for them. To be there for them. I don't care if you hate me. I don't give a shit. But don't hate the team. And if you're hating on me, you can't be loving the team. Okay, they're not one and the same thing.
But you make some very valid points, and I agree. Your comment on it was quite a brave move to potentially upset the Chelsea fans. I've met a number of Chelsea fans, and I'd say any man, you probably don't want to get on the wrong side of some of those characters. But I thought he was very dignified in the way that he said it. He said the truth, and if the rumours are to be believed, England's brave John Terry and Ashley Cole and the like, the dressing room rules. Over there, the senior players, and no club and no manager. The only different one was perhaps Mourinho, perhaps Hiddink, that actually had the dressing room, 100% behind them, and the board 100% behind them at the same time. You don't get many managers that either have Abramovich's backing and the senior players at the same time. And if you don't have one of them, you're going to go.
Well, it's I'm going to use a reference that I'm sure ABM's best will absolutely love. I don't know. I used to when I was younger. I used to watch professional wrestling, and there was a organisation called the WCW, and I know. It's a very tenuous link, but basically they had all these guys paid a ton of money, and the egos were just running wild. It was just a madhouse, and they would bring in person after person try and run this thing, but that train was just completely crazy, and in the end it crumbled. And I just remember, I can't remember when it was he did this, but do you remember Harry Redknapp called a bunch of Spurs fans that rang into TalkSport idiots? Do you remember that?
I think he's done that more than once. Harry's had a couple of rants against fans and, almost adds to his character, doesn't he?
I just thought, wait a minute, you're ringing into TalkSport to have a go at the fans, to have a go at people who ring into TalkSport by calling them idiots. The irony was, I just thought, you don't really get irony, do you, Harry? But, I just think there's something. I just know when I look at Chelsea. I mean, in terms of obviously with third, that can change. It's a very, very tight league, and I mean there's been talk about us trying to catch up City. I mean, do you think that's possible? I think it's mathematically possible, but no, I don't see it happening.
Game, I was in two minds as to what the result I wanted to be. I knew from the obvious I didn't want Chelsea win. That would have been a disaster, but you have the two choices. Do you want Man City to win and extend their lead if they're catchable, or do we want them to take maximum points to Chelsea? And to be honest, this season, especially with Arsenal breathing down on necks, I think second is feasible, but it's unlikely. I'm all about going for that third spot. That's where I hope and think we will finish. I would obviously still take fourth as we're in the top four. I'm not that tough.
Well, here's the thing. The thing I know I found is that Man City Chelsea game was probably the most enjoyable game in the world for me, because I just didn't care. It was like, if Man City win, that's all right. Chelsea, we can leapfrog Chelsea. If Chelsea win, well, you know what, Man City are catchable, and if it's a draw, that's perfect for both of us. It was the most enjoyable game ever. I just loved it.
I know exactly what you're saying, and it is nice when you can watch a game and you're not biting your fingernails when it's Spurs, and you've obviously got passion for that. But the one thing I would disagree with, I didn't want a Chelsea win. I know that the getting to second would be amazing and catching Man City. Out of all of those possibilities, the one thing I did not want was a Chelsea win. I'd have taken a draw, and I'd have taken a Man City win, just not Chelsea to win. Because then it literally, I don't want it to turn into a two-way fight between us and Arsenal for fourth place.
Yeah.
The more teams that are kind of in that mix, well, hopefully Arsenal not, but the more teams, you know what I mean, that are still scrapping around, I think the better it is. If it's literally two teams going for one, then it makes it tougher for us.
And I think Everton, unfortunately, haven't been able to last a distance. I mean, who knows? They can still turn it around, but I think it is. I mean, those. I think technically, I personally don't think we're second is like so many things have to go right for us, and we have to beat Man City and then hope Man United beat Man City, and somehow they end up dropping points and we end up picking up points somewhere, you know. And I seriously, if you look at our run-in, we've got Arsenal, then obviously, and then which we'll come on to. We've got Liverpool away, we have Chelsea away. It's going to be a real tough ask to get second, let alone third. You know, even fourth. I mean, that's it's all three. Those 3 games are going to really obviously, these two coming up, Liverpool and Arsenal games, are really going to help. I don't think they'll make or break our season, but they'll definitely have a humongous effect on it.
My viewpoint is we're third now. We're on 51 points. City are 5 points ahead of us. It would be lovely to finish second. However, I would be delighted if we finish third. That would be great. I don't want to rely on other teams beating City and that. I think, to be perfectly honest, it has looked like Man City could be drawn back into it. I don't now think that they probably will. So I think our focus is on going for third, not second. As much as I'd love it, I'd go for third and go all to obviously to keep that guaranteed Champions League spot.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping for third. But here, I have a question for you. Now, you get to decide. This is a little game. If we finish third, and it has to be Chelsea or Arsenal to finish fourth. Who would you pick to finish fourth?
That's an easy one for me to, despite what I've said for the rest of the podcast. Referees run deep, and to me, I have been desperate for Arsenal not to qualify for the Champions League pretty much since Wenger took over. I would hate it. I almost feel disgusted with myself for saying it, but I want Chelsea to get fourth, but that's only at the expense of Arsenal. Everton are out of it as far as I'm concerned. Liverpool were never in it. In an ideal world, I'd love Everton to get fourth behind us in third, and Chelsea and Arsenal out of those positions.
So you has to be either Chelsea or Arsenal. Has to be either Chelsea or Arsenal. You've got to choose one or the other.
Easy choice. I want Arsenal to be going down all the way, so I would pick Chelsea above Arsenal every day.
Do you know what? I'm going to surprise you with my choice, actually. Guess if I had to choose, I have Arsenal, Chelsea to finish fourth. Who do you reckon? Guess I'm going to surprise you. I'm going to choose for Arsenal to be fourth over Chelsea. And here's my reason.
I'm not sure what to say after that. How could you want our rivals to maintain Champions League football? Surely, what's needed is one season knocked out of it, and those guys are in a downward spiral potentially.
Oh, well, do you know what? This is just my 2 cents on the matter anyway. But ultimately, this is the thing that I don't get. When I look at Arsenal, I mean, Arsenal are a phenomenal side. They're fifth. They're about 4 points behind us. They're a phenomenal side. Even though they've lost Van Persie, they have still remained a very, very competitive and very good side. And yet, you look at them, you think, well, there's an obvious flaw there. Is it Chesney? So Chesney, he's a good goalkeeper, but he's not a top 4 goalkeeper. I think he'd either get into, say, any of the 6 or 10 Premiership League teams. He'd get into those. But he's not a top 4 goalkeeper, not by my reckoning. And you've got to wonder, how did we get Hugo Lloris ahead of Arsenal? I don't get that.
I would say the reasoning is you could look at a number of players in recent years. How did we get Van der Vaart above Arsenal? Yeah, okay, I know, different scenario. Arsenal has been crying out for a world-class keeper since David Seaman.
Yeah.
They've had Jens Lehmann. He's the curly-haired erratic German. I loved it when he was in goal. I know he was there the season of the Invincibles, but he always had his moments. Manuel Almunia.
Manuel.
and all of these players, I kind of thought, thank God, Arsenal have got some phenomenal players out on the pitch, like Van Persie, Fabregas, but they're weak in goal. But every season they got Champions League. So to answer your question, I don't think it's a one-off that we've managed to get a couple of coups.
That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to say, Dom. Even though they've been in the Champions League, we've been able to compete with Arsenal for players. Okay. However, if Chelsea are in the Champions League, there's no way we compete with them for players purely because they can just blow us out of the water financially. Now,
they can blow us out of the water
financially, but I'm saying without the Champions League, they're a much harder sell. And Chelsea, even though they've got all this money, they're always going to be a much harder sell to buy players, just because you've got the wealthy, like you've got your PSGs, you've got those wealthy Ukrainian Russian clubs, and obviously Man City. And I just think, from purely, and it pains me to say this, I just think we can compete better. I just think I'm just looking at it in terms of even in the playing field, Chelsea will be much more weaker for it. And for me, to see the likes of Oscar and Marco Marin and Eden Hazard, who basically turned us down in lieu of the riches of Chelsea, to see the look on their smug little faces when we are above them, not only above them, in the Champions League, automatic, and they're not even in it. There's something quite gratifying.
This is recent times at Chelsea. The rivalry with Arsenal, for me, goes back much further. And I'll be honest, I disagree with you. I think Chelsea are a one-off. I don't think that missing out on Champions League for one season will really affect them in the slightest. I think players still go with a view to Roman Abramovich. Plus, unlike PSG and some of the Russian clubs, it's the Premiership. That's a massive deal for people.
That is true, yeah.
One season out of the Premiership, Chelsea won't make too much difference to their pulling power. To Arsenal, it was devastating.
Well, they did. I remember they talked about this before. Obviously, I remember that season. Because the thing is, I remember last year we were 13 points ahead, and everyone was saying that basically, and obviously we'd won that game, but then we collapsed, and they just picked up an amazing run of form. But there's something that I always quite remember about it. They said that game was worth, say, £50 million to them. I mean, the fact that they won that game that's the reason. Even though they had to sell Van Persie, that if they hadn't sold Van Persie, they wouldn't have been in the black. I've never been to the Emirates, but it's one of the most expensive tickets you can possibly get in football. I mean, I believe you need to mortgage your house and sell one of your kidneys to get tickets.
It's ridiculously expensive, ridiculously.
And yet they still can't make a profit, and so it would basically kill them like it would kill them like a stone, definitely, because without the Champions League, I even remember seeing. I know West Ham were advertising, even though we're their rivals, and they were advertising their cup final tickets, but Arsenal were advertising for the Champions League games. I'm like, wait a minute, you're in the Champions League. You shouldn't have to be advertising to get people to want to come to your games. And you're Arsenal. You've got that lovely, wonderful football that you play. So it's amazing what's happened.
We don't want to turn it into the YouShubes Arsenal podcast, but Arsenal have had, they've been spoiled over the years. Arsenal fans have had it great. Compared to us, over the years they've had it great, and they don't know what it's like to be mid-table. That's the difference between Spurs and Arsenal. Spurs, White Hart Lane, trying to get a season ticket there. White Hart Lane is sold out all the time. We've got a massive loyal fan base, and I could guarantee you this: if Arsenal had finished, if we swapped league positions over the last 20 years, I can guarantee you this: that the Arsenal stadium would be more empty than it's full more often than Arsenal ever would. If you know what I mean. Their fans, they've been spoiled over the years. They've had it too good. I'd like to see, and I think even the other week when they crashed out of the cup.
Yeah.
I think the people were mentioning, exactly like you said, loads of seats.
And I just think, and here's the thing, do you know how I mean, I'm going to give ABB credit. I'm going to give, Gareth Bale, Michael Dawson, Hugo Lloris credit, but one man who, and I still think, yes, he makes he makes mistakes, but Daniel Levy, I mean, because people say, oh, I don't want to do a Leeds, or I don't want to do a Portsmouth, and what I really dislike is how they confuse the two. The Leeds were basically a club that were basically, if you look at their model was based, we're going to qualify for the Champions League every season, and that's our big revenue driver. With Portsmouth, they were a benefactor-based model. Yes, they had money coming in from the Premier League, but they were very much a benefactor-based model. And I believe the guy who owned them, I don't know how many of the moons ago, I think his assets were frozen. Yeah, some Russian guy, I don't know who he was, but he had his assets frozen as part of some court case, and obviously that basically really, exposed the holes within, Portsmouth, and that's why their wages weren't getting paid. And what I think, credit to Levy, what he's done. I mean, I was actually near the Spurs ground. I was actually getting my I've got a new Spurs shirt, and I've got my name. I've got Shubes. I went with Shubes, and Ledley King's number on the back of my shirt. And but you're looking at it and you think, well, he's really smart here because he's not relying on the Champions League. He's not relying on match day revenue either. He's because obviously can have that massive, humongous Sainsbury's. Apparently, he's like the biggest Sainsbury's in the world or something. And he's been very, very smart on how he's done this. He's been very, very very acute, and as befits a guy with a first class honours degree in land economy from Cambridge. And I just think, Levy, I mean, stuff that he's done, he's taken some humongous risks, and some of them have worked. Harry Redknapp all those years ago. Some of them haven't. Harry Redknapp, maybe last year, and Juan de Ramos. And even, I think, we don't give him enough credit for what he does. And, I mean, next season, I think the new Premiership League deal, apparently the bottom club will earn as much money as Man United will earn for winning the Premiership this season. It's just some ridiculous, crazy thing that's happening in terms of the Premier League, I mean, the money that's going around is just absolutely bonkers. I mean, my Sky bill will go up, I don't know, a gazillion percent, I guess, as a result. But it is ridiculous what's going on. And he's been very calm. He's not going to think, oh, do you know what? I've got my receiver rating to go up, I don't know, by about 50 odd million. I'm going to buy X amount of players. They're not doing that. They've been very smart about it.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and everyone knows that the Champions League gives you bucket loads of cash. That's why certain domestic things be valued. With regards to what you're saying about people referencing leagues or Portsmouth, I think I did one very, very flippant and offhandedly, and kind of got shot down for it. I think the main point that I was making backs up what you've just been saying. Levy has built an incredibly sound business model. I mean, I remember the days when, Alan Sugar and Terry Venables were there and saved us from almost kind of, going under and deep dark days. And since then, he's created an incredibly sound business model, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Yes, he has his flaws. One of those is perhaps almost reveling a little bit too much in his own kind of reputation of driving a hard bargain and not investing in a forward that we needed. But I couldn't agree more. He's a great guy, he's a businessman. I think he has done wonders, absolute wonders for Tottenham Hotspur the last 10 years or so.
Definitely. So, the North London Derby, our cup final, so as many Goons would call it.
Cup final. Let's say it's Arsenal's cup final. For us, we're concentrating on top four. For them, it also runs as Arsenal's cup final.
You know what's interesting? They really need to win this. I mean, if they failure for them to win this, I mean, a draw is not good enough for them. They have to win this because they absolutely do.
If we win this, we're on 51 points. So we are currently 4 points ahead of them. If we can go 7 points ahead of them, then I think we would have to have an absolute disaster not to finish in that.
Oh, don't say that, Don. We had another disaster last season as well.
I know people don't like tempting fate, and I'm trying to tempt fate. Don't believe it. I personally believe that you create your own fate. But I know what you mean. It's a crucial game. So I just, would I be happy with the draw? I'd take it, but I actually think we can take him this time.
Do you know
we can revenge the earlier game and fix them.
Do you know what? It's incredible, but for me, I know this sounds really weird, and I've said this quite a few times, but that 5-2 defeat, that made me believe in Andre Villa's Spurs more than I had ever done beforehand.
Why?
It was because the fact that I think we were 4-1 down, and he just said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go for 3 at the back. He brought on Tom Carroll, brought Dawson, took off Kyle Walker, went 3 at the back, and really went for it. And then suddenly it was like 4-2, and it was just like you could see they were like deer in the headlights. They were really scared for a moment.
There was a brief moment. I remember that match well. Obviously, it was Arsenal. I was out on a stag do in Amsterdam. Did we watch it? So I was watching it in a sports bar in Amsterdam with an Arsenal fan. And I was confident at the beginning, and the Adebayor sending off changed everything.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're saying. When we were losing, we had to kind of adapt to Adebayor coming off. We did give it a little bit of a go. There was a brief moment where I thought, look, the game's not over. We could still get something. It didn't turn out that way. Yeah, I took a couple of positives from it. Not a load, a couple.
I just felt that was the game that I thought, you know what, he is daring. He's willing to take a chance. He took a chance before the game playing 4-4-2. And then even when, there's nothing, he can't there's no way you can envisage your player will be sent off. There's just no way you can do that. And it was just a very, I don't know, there's something that made me think, you know what, there's something about this guy. I can really get behind him. He's not going to go down like some bitch. And, sorry, did I just swear? Screw it, fuck it. And he just, yeah, I know. He just, I'm not going to go down.
Yeah. He's not usually like.
He just thought, I'm not going to go down like some punk, and he just went for it. And there's, I don't know, I just think tied into that. I mean, obviously we lost a few games after. I think we lost. I can't remember the exact sequence, but I remember we lost to Everton afterwards. But I don't know. I think in that moment, the seed of our resilience, that this incredible ability that we just don't have in on us. Because I mean, if you look at that West Ham game, I think the last 15 minutes they were absolutely exhausted, and they just, and basically we just kept pushing. And it reminds me, I don't know if you ever saw that Frank Shamrock Tito Ortiz fight. Did you ever see that? I don't know. It's a very old fight from UFC 19.
I didn't see it obviously at the time. I saw half of that, yeah.
But the thing I remember about this is that basically Frank Shamrock basically during that fight, I mean, Tito Ortiz had the size advantage. He was bigger. I mean, Frank Shamrock, I mean, it's incredible now, but basically the equivalent of that will be GSP fighting Lyoto Machida or something, That's how big the weight difference was. And,
sorry, come on.
And the thing was that Frank Shamrock basically kept on pushing and pushing Tito Ortiz until he broke him. He just would not quit. And I just think there's something, I think physically, I mean, fitness and everything is one thing, and I think we're obviously very physically fit, but there's just this mental, I think, give credit to Andre Villas-Boas. He didn't say, you know what, I'm going to play because I was thinking, oh my, he's crazy, he's playing a strong team in the Europa, and then in the Premier League, he's nuts. But by doing that, he's actually engendered this idea that, you know what, I don't believe you're tired, you're professional athletes. You can push this, because if you want to you're going to be in the Champions League, you need to be able to do this. Play on the Champions League on a Wednesday, and then play on the Saturday. And I didn't understand that, his rationale at the time for doing that, but now I so get it. And
it's one of those things where I don't think one size fits all. I think it's not a case of you must press best in Europe and concentrate on the league or do it the other way around. I think about having a balance, and that's the beauty of ADD. He's not afraid to take a risk. Like you said, the 4-4-2 against Arsenal, people were crying out for it. He couldn't legislate for us staying down to 10 men and have to change it. But I agree with you. It's a lot of our games. We do have the resilience that we didn't have before. He is prepared to gamble. Us as Spurs fans, everyone is an armchair football fan, or an armchair manager rather, and everyone goes, why don't you make a change? And one of the most frustrating things, I was a fan of Harry, one of the most frustrating things is sometimes he would persist the same thing again and again, and just be stubborn about it and not change. It was infuriating. I think, a wise man once said, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing again and again and again, and expecting a different result. And that's the beauty of AVB, is that it does try to differently, and we have that result, and it's refreshing to see.
Well, it's that Villa game. I think obviously Danny Rose is sent off, and we got it back to 1-1. But then Harry brings on Parker, which you can understand why he did that. But I just think you had to go for the win. There was this was like a penultimate game of the season. We were playing Fulham next week. We had to win this, and I think he kind of. And sometimes it could be, who knows? Parker could have scored a thunderbolt of a goal. He hasn't. He's never scored for us. I doubt he ever will. But if he does, it'll be like a Stefan Freund moment. I actually wonder what will happen if Stefan, if he actually, if Stefan, how will Stefan Freund will do on the touchline really if Parker does score. But I just think, when you look at the courage. I mean, to me, he takes off Dembele, and he takes off Holtby, who I thought was struggling throughout the game. he was getting pushed around a little bit. Although he can play on the left, and he has played on the left wing, he's more of a number 10. And I felt that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not being bad. He was getting pushed around like a rag doll. They were properly laying into him, and they weren't getting booked for it either. I mean, there was a horrible tackle on Adebayor, which there was no booking, and yet then Bale get booked about a minute later. So I was, I mean, therefore Sam Allardyce says, oh, Dembele should have been sent off because he should have had 2 bookables. I'm like, no, I don't know what you're on, dude, but there's something not right here. Because some of your players were very lucky to escape bookings, so it's that.
I think slightly larger than average Sam, as we shall call him. I think he often does that. He'll often come out, and it's a classic tactic of almost diverting press attention from his own team's deficiencies. So I actually thought played pretty damn well that evening, for the record. But he often does that. I agree with you. Him mentioning Dembele or any other thing, it deflects it from the ball to shoot at hand. So I don't really read too much into it.
But there's something that the reason I'm talking about the substitutes that, I mean, Sigurdsson, he came on, and within a few minutes, he went for it, and he looked good, and I've been a huge Siggy fan. I've been a huge fan of the guy, and he then brought on one of my brought on, and then how Adebayor missed that, I cannot fathom for the life of me how he missed that. I can't work that one out, but but Sigurdsson was putting some good touches in, and and Tom Carroll. I mean, I was again impressed with this with the young lad. I mean, it was actually his through balls that Gareth Bale ran onto, and and then obviously Gareth Bale got fouled. The ball fell through to Siggy, and then Siggy passed it to Carroll, and then there was a lovely bit of movement. Siggy, Adebayor, and then Bale unleashed his thunderbolt. But in terms of the North London derby, do you think we should play Sandro and Dembele again, or would you drop... No, not Sandro and Dembele, sorry, Dembele and Parker, or would you drop one of the two?
And there's say going again on also Spurs forum on it's a tough one, but I would actually... Parker has been a shadow of the player he was for this season. However, I think he's coming more into it. I think his games have actually picked up recently, which a lot of people don't seem to recognise. Answer to your question is, I'd stick with Parker for now. I think players like Siggy, I'm actually becoming more of a fan of his now, and Tom Carroll to perhaps make an impact coming on. I think Parker makes less of an impact if he comes on, and much more solid. So I would start with Parker.
So you have Parker, and so you would have Parker. You had Parker and Dembele.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is one of those real tough things because I look at that Arsenal team and they've got. I mean, we were exposed. I mean, forget the Carroll. The foul that I mean, Carroll basically did a Drogba. I mean, it was a foul and he right went down. But my God, the way he went down, that was Drogba-esque. The way Andy Carroll went down. And
it was, and people talk about him being quite mad and perhaps needing to bulk up a bit, but Drogba would have been proud.
But the thing is, twice we were exposed. I mean, that was a beautiful through ball for Carroll, for Joe Cole's goal. It was basically Hugo Lloris's face that basically prevented West Ham scoring a third. And you just think with the pace of Walcott and Podolski and the skill of players like Arteta and Wilshere, it's a game that I am petrified of this game. Honestly, it's like Daleks. Honestly, I want to watch this game behind the sofa or something. It's a game.
I have been accused of getting a little bit too cocky before games or this, that and the other. I genuinely do not want to attempt to say. Over the years, I have been, exactly like you say, petrified of playing Arsenal. I'm talking in the days of Henry, Vieira, and in more recent times, Van Persie and Fabregas. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think their team is anything like as good as it has been. I think it is a poor imitation of Arsenal teams of the past. Now, don't get me wrong. Their league position shows you that they are still a quality side. However, I don't feel petrified like I have done in recent years. I feel fired up for this, and I think with the right attitude, with the right game plan, if our players stick to it and don't get sent off after a block at the beginning of the game, it's there for the taking.
Here's the thing. 'Cause obviously they've had their injury problems. I think Diaby's managed to get himself injured again. I feel sorry for the poor lad. I know he's an Arsenal player, but that guy gets injured so often. It's ridiculous. So you're saying, Dom?
I think it's more rare that Diaby's fit.
Yeah, he's kind of like he's like kind of like their Jonathan Woodgate or something. He just seems to be. He just seems to have one injury setback after another. But I think with Sanya being injured.
But he's getting there.
But I mean, Sanya apparently he's considered to be doubtful. I don't know whether that's false information being disseminated to trying to put us off our game.
No, I've heard it from a couple of sources that he's out.
So I think, I mean, if you look at, that team's, for me, they've got an amazing team. And I think Cazorla, Wilshere, and Sanya when he's on form, I'd happily have on our team. Wilshere's an excellent player. Cazorla's an excellent player. Sanya is a good player. And even Vermaelen. Vermaelen's actually a very good player. He's not been as good this season, but then again, he's had no midfield protection, I think. And Koscielny, again, this is a Spurs video podcast, as Dom rightly said, not an Arsenal video podcast. But when you look at them, Koscielny's what I call a good to average defender. He's not a Titus Bramble, but he's he's not a Titus Bramble kind of play. He's not a Tony Gardner or an Alton Thor. Do you remember those guys?
I remember them all too well, Shoes.
Yeah, yeah, and what would happen to him? But I just think, for me personally, the team I'd go with, and this just, I'll start with Adebayor up front, because obviously we've got so many strikers, obviously, to choose from. I would go for a front three of Bale, Siggy, and Lennon. And I'd go for a double pivot of Dembele and Holtby. And the back four, I think it will be Kyle Walker and Benny at fullback. At centre half, I'm really undecided here, purely because I think Dawson's been superb. I think he's been absolutely superb, but you kind of worry about his lack of pace. And I think Corker's obviously, he's got pace. Vertonghen is quite mobile. Even though he was culpable for the Joe Cole goal, to me, he's not a natural left. Although he can play left back, he's a centre half. He's a centre half that can play left back. That's just, And I just think I'll go with Corker and Vertonghen, and I'd actually have Hugo Lloris, obviously in goal. And I'd actually be tempted to give Jan Vertonghen the armband, because he was Ajax captain, and I suppose naturally it would have been Aaron Lennon, because obviously he's been at the club longer. But I actually would maybe drop Dawson and Parker. I think it's one of those games where I think you must respect your opponents, play your own game, but respect your opponents. Your thoughts, please, Don.
I have to say I agree with you. I think respecting your opponents by dropping both our captain at the time, and as you said, a player that's fantastically well, and our player of the season from last season, I think would be a mistake. I understand the reasons you've given, but I think Parker, I don't know whether he will ever be as good as he has been after an injury. I've had him in there. He's a solid guy, can stuff up. I would also pick Dawson ahead of Falk, so I have Dawson and Tongan as centre back. I just think we need leaders at the back. Yes, you mentioned the lack of pace of Dawson, but he's always had a lack of pace. I think this is the time where we need two solid leaders in the middle.
Yeah.
And like you said, Tongan is an ex-captain at Ajax. The Tongan and Michael Dawson, I think, are a solid pairing. Tongan's got pace. Dawson's got the passion, his positioning and tackling. That's what I'd go for.
Yeah, and I think I agree. I'd probably go Dawson. I just think because obviously having seen what Arsenal and having seen what West Ham did to us, but I think we have to take into account that they were a lot fresher than we were, having not had him played. Obviously, we had I think in the height of all the West Ham games, we've forgotten what happened against Lyon last week. I don't know. It just seems to be eclipsed really by the whole Gareth Bale show that we had on Wednesday, on Monday. But
The show seems to I tell you, it's amazing to actually be like you said, the kind of team that scores, at the end of the game. But Gareth Bale, I have never remembered a time where literally, if we're drawing or if we're losing and it's the final kick of the game or we get a last-minute chance, I don't ever really remembering a time as a Spurs fan where we have scored and come back so consistently as we have done recently. And yes, all praise to Gareth Bale, but we're not a one-man team. But he is one hell of a player for us and one hell of an impact player as well.
I have a question for you, Dom. Now, everyone keeps saying that Gareth Bale has to leave Tottenham to, see the best out of his career. But how come they never have to mention that Jack Wilshere has to leave Arsenal to get the best out of his career?
It's always the way, and it's one of these things where I think they probably might be saying that Wilshere, if all goes to plan this season, Spurs have not. The answer to that, Spurs, despite our history, during the era of the Premiership, have never been a top club with consistency like we seem to be building now.
Yeah.
That's the big difference. So with us, any of our great players that we've had in our English team, they've always gone on to bigger and better things, whether that's the likes of Sheringham to Man United or what have you.
Carrick, Berbatov, Keane.
Exactly. Berbatov, all of them. The key to Liverpool, exactly. We always were like that. I think now that in recent seasons, under Harry and now under AVB, we're establishing ourselves as proper contenders for top four, not just as a one-off, but every single season. So the Gareth Bale needs to go somewhere else to further his career. If he really wants to, go by blessing in a few seasons after he's fighting into Champions League and hopefully got a glory. I think Arsenal will be falling into the same position. Very, very different.
Well, here's the
They
thing.
don't qualify